I'm Hoyt.
I'm Corey.
Welcome to the Louisiana Entertainment Experience, where there's always something cooking.
Always something cooking.
Today we're talking with Gregg Martinez, Louisiana's own, born and bred right here in Lafayette.
We're right down the street here,
Right.
between Carencro and Lafayette.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I know when I mentioned to my mom that you'd be on the show, she was excited. She has followed you for a long time. So
Oh, good.
I'm glad you're here with us. Glad you're here
All
with
right,
us. Can you tell us how you got your start
And what?
in music?
No, I'm kidding. I started, for the audience out there, we are in the heart of Carencro here. So I started at this church right down the street, the St. Peter's Catholic Church. Sang my first solo when I was 8 years old, Silent Night. And so anyway, that sang in that church was a training ground for me.
Wow, that's
For
amazing.
years. And then, when I became a teenager, I started playing guitar and getting out a little more.
Yeah, sure.
And then when I was old enough to do it on my own, make some money,
Sure.
went on out there. So.
Who would you say your major influences in music has been?
Well, there's been a lot of them over the years, but going back to the beginning, my mother, I'm going back to the beginning because my mother tried to influence me in other ways and it didn't work. My mother wanted me to sing on the Lawrence Welk Show.
Lawrence Welk, wow.
I said, Mom, that is not cool.
Yeah.
I said, those guys don't have girlfriends, I'm sure. They probably have a hard time. That's just not cool. So I had a different style in mind, I guess you would say. But so I listened to the radio like everybody else, but I didn't really know what kind of voice I was going to have or anything. And my cousin lived next door, and he went off to Vietnam. And I raided his record collection. And he had Otis Redding and Temptations and Smokey Robinson, all the Motown stuff, all the Stax music, and I listened to that plus the radio. But I still never thought I could ever do that music and so when I started playing, I played acoustic guitar and sang, which was really, really popular in the 70s. That was James Taylor and that kind of stuff was mainstream.
Sure.
So I did a solo acoustic thing from the time I was 18 for a couple of years, but my voice started getting bigger. And I've told my kids that when we were younger, you didn't have 100 channels. We didn't even have MTV yet because MTV revolutionized everything in the 80s, where you could see your favorite artists all day long, every day.
Right.
VH1, all that stuff. We had none of that, so you really couldn't see your favorite artist, but so you had TV shows, and I watched them all. I don't care if it was Johnny Cash's show or Glenn Campbell or whatever.
Sure.
It was live music, and I watched it, and I wanted to do that. Well, here comes this guy named Tom Jones that had a show, and he had this big voice, and he wore tight pants, and he'd move out there, and the women would scream, and I said, man, that's what I want to do.
That's what I want.
And my dad would be like, oh. Well, anyway, as time went on, my voice started getting bigger, and it got real big. And there was a guy named TK Hewland, who was, we call him the King now. TK was a nickname, but the initial TK, we call him the King. Mm-hmm. And he was the king in this area, especially then. And he had a big band with horns and all of that, and he was doing that kind of music. And in fact, they used to call him the Tom Jones of Cypress Island. And well, there's another guy. I was at this club. It was a real popular club in Lafayette on Johnson Street, next to La Fonda's, and it was called the After Dark Club. Big club, and you had these road bands would come in, and they would play 6 nights a week. And when I finished my little solo acoustic, every night I'd go over there to catch the last show of these road bands. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a front man, I wanted to
Right.
And sing with the band like that. Well, lo and behold, it was this other local guy that I hadn't seen, and because I was kind of sheltered growing up, and so all my teenage friends, my schoolmates and all would go to these clubs and hear these guys, because you only had to be like 16 back then. The drinking age was 18. And but anyway, I wasn't allowed to go anywhere, so I didn't see these guys until later. And anyway, they introduced a guy from the audience, and his name was Gigi Shin. And he went up there and blew my mind, and blew the mind of the band that he just, I mean, I had never heard anything like that.
Sure, yeah.
And that was it. So those two guys really influenced me because they were as good as anybody. It was on the charts. Anybody that was as big and famous, they were as good as any of them, and if not better. And I could hear them all the time. And so that style began to, I really began to, and so the Sam Cookes of the world, and Al Green and Marvin Gaye, and I listened to all that stuff. And you know, then I finally began, I put a band together and began to do that. And started that in the late 70s. So,
wow.
Doing that. So I've been a front man a long, long time.
So would you say that the influences from the past probably still influence you today?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sure. And most of that
I'm still doing that stuff.
Right?
Yeah, I'm still doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Now they call it swamp pop, which is an indigenous Louisiana music. But the swamp pop of old, or I guess the original swamp pop, is heavily, heavily influenced by Fats Domino.
Sure.
In fact, if you talk to Warren Stone, the godfather of swamp pop, or any of the Johnny Allen, who was my principal in junior high, he used to paddle me with a paddle. And he could tell you some stories about me. Johnny, we called him Mr. Giat.
Yeah.
And but those guys, it was Fats Domino was the predecessor.
Sure.
And so I was more came into the thing more of the Memphis soul kind of thing, the Muscle Shoals whole Southern soul kind of thing. But that has kind of come under the umbrella now of swamp pop. Has reached out, and we're kind of under that umbrella now too. So yeah.
So like when I was in high school, a lot of the bands that back then was labeled as heavy metal. Now my son, they listen to it and they go, "Oh, that's classic rock."
Yeah.
Sure, most definitely, definitely. So you've already really told us a little history about yourself. I was going to ask you about that. How many years you'd say you've been doing this?
I started playing music for a living in '75.
Wow, yeah, okay. 43 years.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I had long hair and everything.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, long hair.
Oh, yeah.
So what other guys you played with around? Right?
Well, I always had my own band.
Yeah.
So I never played with anybody. So, I was always the band leader and trying to emulate those. I was trying to be TK and Gigi. And that was my dream. I wanted to pick up where they left off, so to speak. You could never do that. It's life doesn't work out that way. There's only one TK, and even Gigi. I mean, it's a whole different kind of thing. But anyway, I had the opportunity to leave and travel in 1985, and I was gone 21 years, and so my whole world changed then. But
sure, 21 years. That's a long way to be.
I came back in '06.
Yeah. So tell us where you went.
Well, I had a band and we started playing gigs on the road.
Sure.
East Coast a lot, but the Midwest, Kansas, Missouri, Ohio. But after about 6 months on the road, mostly the South, Georgia, Florida, and we wound up in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which was the casino mecca at the time because Vegas was going through this transitional period and was kind of down, and Atlantic City was the new thing. Because it wasn't long they had passed the gambling thing. And at that time, gambling was only in Nevada and Atlantic City. And Vegas is in the middle of a desert, and I mean, you got to be wanting to go there.
Yeah.
Whereas Atlantic City, we were told in the 80s, there were 40 million people within a tank of gas at Atlantic City. So the population was, from Washington, D.C. is only a couple hours. Philadelphia's an hour. New York's 2 hours, so. Anyway, there's a lot of people going there, and so I started playing there and wound up signing an exclusive agreement with our future president, the Trump properties. And so we play about 6 months of the year on the Trump properties. And then between the casino gigs, you play 6 weeks at a time, 6 nights a week. And then we'd leave and go back on the road. Usually go down to Florida, East Coast, and go back up. And
that's a lot.
So I was there for 4 years.
That's a lot on somebody on your voice 6 nights a week.
Oh, I know.
Sure.
I know. Yeah. And then with all the lifestyle that went along with it, I don't know how I did it.
Well, we're glad you're still here.
Yeah. I slowed down. Calmed down a lot.
Yeah.
We were kind of wild, but me and your buddy Tony Goulart. We were pretty wild.
Not Tony Goulart. Oh. He wasn't a saint that sat in church every week.
Man, it was wild. In Atlantic City, the first six weeks engagement we did, all the bands were from the Northeast, like Syracuse, or we were the only Louisiana band they'd ever heard of, and the Cajun thing was starting to sweep the country.
Yeah.
Back then, so we hit it at the right time, and we embellished. And we had some crazy cases in the band, and we played it to the hilt, and they would ask us things like, "Man, y'all put Tabasco and everything," and we'd say, "Oh, man, you ought to try it on cornflakes." And ice cream, ice cream. Oh yeah, and they believe everything.
Well, I love it when they ask you if you have a pet alligator.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's a famous question.
I told them we had alligators on the front porch.
Sure, it's in my backyard all the time.
But we had some dogs that would kind of keep them away. Right. We make it. Yeah. My drummer Sean Falk from Kaplan, crazy. I mean, it's the funniest guy and personality bigger than all outdoors, and we set the town on fire. I mean, we got there and everybody was, you got to come see this band from Louisiana because it's just different. I mean, it's just different. It's boy, it was something.
A lot of places and people say, where are you from? Man, I love your accent and that laugh, and I'll go, what accent?
Yeah, I do that. We're back.
Wait, Gregg Martinez. Talking about the history. You were telling us the history about who you played with, where you played, and whatever.
I guess a lot of history after 40 plus years.
How about the Boogie Kings?
Well, Boogie Kings, I was gone, like I said, 21 years, and I moved back in 06. And the Boogie Kings were still at it. And Gigi Shin, who I talked about earlier, he called Ned Thayil, leader of the Boogie Kings. He said, Gregg Martinez is moving back to Louisiana, you need to get him in the Boogie Kings. So Ned called me, and I did, and started doing dates with them, which was kind of a dream come true. I always felt like I was born 10 years too late, because the heyday of the Boogie Kings was in the 60s, and I was in grade school. But better late than never. We had some good shows and made a couple of good records, and got to sing with my heroes. And, and it got me some, some notice. I came back and you wonder if people forgot you because I'd been gone so long. And so some did, some never heard of me. But the Boogie Kings helped get me some name recognition, get back out there. And
Who's some of the other people you've been around that sticks out?
Well, going back to Atlantic City, when I was there, I wound up being so-called, I guess, discovered by the people from the Philadelphia sound. And in a nutshell, they wanted to make me the White Teddy Pendergrass. So there's still people who call me the White Teddy. And which Teddy Pendergrass was a phenomenon in the late 70s and early 80s in that area of the Philadelphia soul music, it was called. So I signed $1 million recording producer's contract with these guys. One was a drummer from Teddy Pendergrass, and all the stuff that was played in that studio and the sound of Philadelphia, which was the OJs, the Spinners, can't even think of all of them now, and Patti LaBelle was part of that scene, and the other guy was a keyboard player and he co-wrote a lot of songs. He co-wrote that song, Ain't No Stopping Us Now, McFadden Whitehead. He co-wrote Wake Up Everybody, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, which was Teddy Pendergrass, his lead singer. And so those two guys, I signed with them, and but nothing ever came of it, and it's mostly my fault. I squandered a lot of my opportunities. I was too wild and crazy and too busy having a good time. And I didn't take it serious when I was in my 20s until later. But there was also a conflict of styles because I was so Southern and they were Northeast, and there's a difference. I was into Al Green. I was into the Southern soul thing, and they were into, and it, I didn't relate as well. And but anyway, but it was a great experience, and I still have friendships. Those guys, Victor Karstoff, and the guy that wrote some of those songs, he wound up being music director with the Temptations for years, up until just a few years ago. So I got to rub elbows with a lot of those people. Sang with Patti LaBelle in New York on Broadway. She was doing a one-woman show, and so that was pretty cool, And so anyway, then I came home and like I said, the Boogie Kings, and then I started my own band again, and I was doing Jazz Fest. I'd done it a few times, and still doing that. That's
sure, you'll be doing Jazz Fest this year,
yeah,
too, right?
Doing the last day. I've done it the last few years.
Is there a certain place at Jazz Fest you play?
The Fado Do stage is where we are, which that's where they put
so if you get
all the Cajun Zydeco, but
get a chance to see Gregg there, go check him out.
Yeah, and this year the billing for our slot at Jazz Fest, it's called Tribute to Gigi Shin. We lost Gigi this past August.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's like losing your hero.
Wonderful human being.
Your mentor, and he was so larger than life.
Yes, and I knew him as well.
He, I mean, the man could walk into a room, and if you didn't know who he was, you would just say, "Who the hell is that?"
Yeah,
He had that, and he never turned it off. The persona was real, and it was. So we can't believe he's gone. But anyway, so it's called Tribute to Gigi Shin, featuring Gregg Martinez and the Delta Kings, with special guests TK Hewlett and Charlene Howard.
Yeah, we'll dedicate this show to Gigi's memory.
Good. We've been doing a lot of that.
Yeah. That's most definitely.
Yeah. So next upcoming events this coming Thursday. Today's Sunday. This coming Thursday, Offbeat Magazine in New Orleans, which is a great publication for our Louisiana music, and it's based out of New Orleans, but it covers all of our music and culture. And they've been real good to me over there. And they have the awards every year called the Best of the Beat Awards, and I'm nominated for Best Male Vocalist, which is the 5th time in the last 7 years. I've yet to win it, but maybe this is the year.
This year.
So that's this. But actually, my band, the Delta Kings, we're playing for the awards this year, which is pretty cool because it's almost always New Orleans musicians playing for that.
Yeah.
They might have a Zydeco once in a while. Sean Ardwin's playing this year too, so it's rare that you're having 2 Acadiana area acts playing at the Offbeat Awards. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And TK's going to be on that with me. And TK,
great.
He's still got this big, huge voice and all this energy, but he can't walk anymore without his walker. He's 75, so he gets up there with that walker, man. He walks up there, and they see this old man, and he puts the walker down, he sits on it, and then he still has this energy, and that voice starts coming, and I said, so they're in for a treat in New Orleans Thursday.
That's wonderful. Who's some of the guys you're playing with now? Then?
In my band?
Yeah.
I have a killer drummer and bass player, Tim Corville from New Iberia, and Sid Dago from New Orleans on bass. Guitar player is Greg Kingston from New Orleans. He and Sid grew up together playing. Daryl Fontenot's on keys. They've all played with a lot of people. Daryl has played with Richard LaBeouf and Jamie Bergeron. A lot of those guys. My sax player is a story. You ought to get him on here.
Come on.
Ron Eads,
Tell him, come on.
one of the founders of the Muscle Shoals horn section.
Oh, wow.
Y'all familiar with Muscle? Have y'all seen that?
Of course.
The movie Muscle Shoals?
Yes.
Yeah.
His pictures in there. Yeah. I can show you his
I think
pictures.
those guys made more hit records than any.
Man, we were rehearsing.
Yeah.
At T-Don, we rehearsed at T-Don Andrews to mix the rub board. At his place.
That's amazing.
And he's got albums all over the walls, and we finished our rehearsal, and Ronnie says, I think I played on that album. I think I played on that one too. Well, the one he's pointing to first is Delbert McClinton, the Jealous Car.
Oh, yeah.
So T-Don takes it off the wall, opens it up. There it is, Ronnie saxophones.
Wow.
And that was Giving It Up For Your Love. The Jealous Kind, Shaky Ground, Going Back to Louisiana, all these. But he played on Mustang Sally, the original. I mean, all kind of hit records he played. He doesn't remember all of them.
Wow.
And so he's 75, and he's still got all his pep and energy. And and then I got a trumpet, James Spells from Baton Rouge, and a guy, Claude Salas on trombone from New Orleans as well.
I know Mr. Spells, yeah.
Yeah, so James is doing sometimes Mike Ritter will play trumpet with me.
Yeah.
But so it's a killer band.
So you know of any local young up and coming musicians there?
Not me.
Might want to come on and play a song, maybe even with his dad.
Play a little guitar with his dad.
Oh, I see where you're going. Yeah. Yeah, I got a boy. I got a son, James, and he's 26. And man, he's 26 already.
Ooh,
but he's a monster guitar player, and we still, he Hoyt coached him in 8th grade. And anyway, we do a duo, which is a real treat for me. Of all these things I'm talking about that I did all these years, I told James one day, I said, I'm gonna look back at all of these things, and when I look back at my career when I'm done, if we ever get done, Warren Storm and TK said we never get done until we die. Right. But anyway, I'd look back and say one of the highlights of my career was these years of playing with my son. Because we're just doing acoustic duo. It's totally different from the stuff I do, but it's kind of like what I started doing when I first started out. And it's really
he's playing classic rock with his dad.
Yeah. And he sings, man. He sings well, and he's an old soul because I raised him. So he does all this old music that I grew up with.
Well, I saw you one time when I first got to know you years back when you came back over here. You came to the Open Door, and some other people were already familiar. You had a song called Heaven or something. I know old friend of mine loved that song and talked about it. But I know faith played a role in you. Coming back around.
Right. Well, when I was in Atlantic City, of course, I'd been about 15 years of being in the mostly clubs is mostly what you did back then, and then the casinos opened up, and but it basically is, in a nutshell, it's called the nightlife. You're not playing at 10 in the morning or 9 to 5 like everybody else, and so the lifestyle that goes on with that is it's not good. It's not good for marriages, for one thing. So I went through a few of those as well, but I finally I had a spiritual awakening in 1989, and the Lord got a hold of me and said, "Okay, this is all going to stop," And so I cut all that out, and I moved to Texas, and then word gets out, and then the churches want you to sing, and so I started singing in churches, and I started traveling, and I started making albums of Christian music, and that took me around the world. I went around the world like 7 times. Went to Europe a few times, went a lot of trips to Asia, South Africa. And so that was another chapter. And then...
you got a book in there somewhere.
Oh, I know. And then Jacob Aranza, he called me that was in the mid-90s. He brought me in, and he brought another girl, singer, Vanessa Mitchell from Atlanta. And they had all these speakers, and we were going to public schools all around Acadiana, talking to kids about drugs and alcohol. And then we had a big rally like at the weekend, and all the kids, we invited them all, and then they'd give them the gospel for that. But anyway, they put me with a different speaker every day. Well, it didn't take me long to get that vision. I said, I can do that. Yeah. Well, the next year I'm doing the whole thing. They didn't need to put me with a speaker. That I sang and I did the whole assembly. Yeah. Well, that was a very worthwhile thing, and I started doing it full time. And for about 8 years, I went all over Texas. Oklahoma, but I went as far as Michigan, Virginia, and I would travel around speaking to high school kids and junior high kids.
That's awesome.
And it was very fulfilling.
I just want to remind everyone to check our community page. We're going to have all of his dates on there. You can also get a link to his website and buy his music. And there's another special treat that you didn't get to share with us earlier about you this week coming up.
Yeah. Next February the 9th, I'm going to be inducted into the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be held at the Rock and Bowl in Lafayette, the new Rock and Bowl in downtown Lafayette. Big place, beautiful place. Open to the public, of course. We're going to be playing. There's going to be a lot of entertainment. A great restaurant, great food. So I'm hoping for a lot of friends.
So it's not this weekend, but the next.
Right, February 9th.
Oh, great.
Not this Saturday.
I'm going to try to make it back, and maybe we'll shoot some footage of the show
yeah.
and talk about
Live
you again.
footage, yeah.
Yeah.
Gregg Martinez at the Rock and Bowl, February 9th, getting inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for being here. God
Thanks for
bless you.
having me. Thanks for having me. Great guy. Enjoyed
Get
it.
you back,
Enjoyed
bring
it.
something
brother.
back, say
All
a
right.
little bit.
And this is Corey.
This is Hoyt, the Louisiana Entertainment Experience Show. Next time, give a hoot and a holler to a coot and a collar. See you.
Thank you.